presentation is on J.C. Linedecker and the influence of homosexuality in early American illustration. Joseph Christian Linedecker was the most influential American illustrator in the early 20th century and a gay man. It was Linedecker's super sleek, homoerotic arrow man that shot his illustration career into stardom. Maybe any straight artist at the time could have created the same arrow man design that is so appealing to Americans even today, but this presentation will explore how Linedecker's sexuality played a large factor in the creation of the ideal American male, the inspiration of the arrow man, and the use of gays with posing. At the age of 16, Linedecker decided to pursue a career as a professional artist, first working as an unpaid intern at J. Mans & Company, where he rose in ranks and became a full-time illustrator. Eventually, Linedecker enrolled at the Art Institute of Chicago and later studied abroad in Paris, France at the Julian Academy with his brother Frank, as seen in the above picture. Upon his return from Paris, Linedecker went straight into editorial work. His first big success was his Mother's Day covers for the Saturday Evening Post, depicting children with rosy cheeks delivering flowers to their mother. The covers were so popular that many Linedecker enthusiasts attribute this cover to the rise in flower purchases on Mother's Day in America. This cover shows the economic power of advertisement and Linedecker's worth as an artist. With his Mother's Day covers having such high influence in the American economy, Arrowman, a men's clothing company that specializes in detachable collars, approached Linedecker for an advertisement commission, which leads us to the creation of the Arrowman. When Arrow Collar approached Linedecker for a series of illustrated ads, Linedecker convinced the company that the creation of a mascot would give the public someone to associate their company with, which would bring distinguish to the brand and further sell more clothes. That ideal mascot for Linedecker was a clean-shaven man with boyish charms, smooth muscles, a hard jaw, and a pensive yet gloomy disposition. Immediately, this mascot became popular among American consumers, with the Arrowman receiving more fan mail from American women than even the biggest actors at the time. Americans found their ideal male in Linedecker's Arrowman. One of the public inspirations for the Arrowman was Huntley Gordon. Gordon was a Canadian actor who rose to fame during the silent film era in 1916. Before his fame as an actor, he was a model in the original Arrowman campaign. His features match perfectly with the hard, clean-shaven jaw and pensive yet gloomy disposition, but Gordon doesn't quite capture the boyish charms that is also associated with the Arrowman. The other inspiration for the model for Linedecker's Arrowman does, and that's a young Canadian man, Charles A. Beach. While there are no photographs of Beach, the above photo is attributed to the Canadian model. In My Adventures as an Illustrator, Norman Rockwell gives us a description of Beach as a tall, powerfully built, and extraordinarily handsome. In reading this description, even in its briefness, readers can see the appeal that Beach had to Linedecker and how these key features are the base for every Arrow man. Not long after meeting Linedecker, Beach and Linedecker became lovers, and Charles involved himself in Linedecker's career in different aspects besides modeling. Beach became his manager and negotiated his fees, and when Beach became too old to model, he continued to influence the look of the Arrowman by picking Linedecker's models. Beach's influence is important due to the popularity of the Arrowman and Linedecker's subsequent adoption of the Arrowman as his signature character, reusing the archetype as he worked with other companies. As we see in this interwoven advertisement, this figure displays the same boyish charms, smooth muscles, etc. as the aforementioned Arrowman, and will be perceived by the public as such. However, what we will explore for this advertisement and the multiple that follow is not just the inspiration of the character, but his gaze in combination with his pose. Often, when Linedecker was positioning a solo male cover, the Arrowman seldom made eye contact with the viewer. It is as if the man is completely unaware of his audience as we peek uninvitingly into his space. To further emphasize the uniqueness of Linedecker's portrayal of men, we will compare his work to that of his contemporaries and see how a similar product is illustrated. Coles Phillips is an illustrator in the early 20th century who received a campaign from Whole Proof Hosiery to represent their socks. In this illustration, Phillips captures the comical moment when a man realizes he's put on his shoes before his trousers. Both Phillips and Linedecker show a man in a similar state of undress, even the same clothes, each avoiding the audience's gaze as we observe this snapshot into their life. The defining feature that makes one homoerotic and the other comical is the stance of the man combined with his gaze. Philip's man stands strong, tall and angular, the strength of his stance emphasized by the triangles in the background and the repeated triangles in between his bent arms, his hair, creating a formal distance to the advertisement. This is in complete contrast with Leindecker's curvy arms and legs, the S-shaped limbs appearing sensual and shy as the man looks away. Leindecker's handling Again, with the same artists and their respective campaigns, we see the difference in the use of posing and gaze that make the intro of a man appear as a commodity and not the whole proposer. The curved back and perpendicular legs of Philip's illustration sits as strong and powerful as the thinker as he sits in his bathrobe. He is not looking at the viewer. In fact, his posing is closed off, shielding him from the eyes of the viewer. However, Leindecker welcomes the viewer's gaze as the man salaciously props his foot on the stool, displaying the socks, while almost exposing himself in the party with his bathrobe. Again, we see Leindecker use the S-like limbs that soften the man's hard edges and make him appear more vulnerable. Leindecker's imagery is more in line with the genre popular in the Baroque and Renaissance period that often depicts a window view into a woman's space as she does something private, such as lounging naked or bathing. Rembrandt's Bathsheba resembles the image of Leindecker's act. Just like Rembrandt with Bathsheba, Leindecker uses the disguise of portraying a more mundane task to hide a different agenda. Leindecker is selling interwoven socks and Rembrandt is telling a biblical story, but beneath the surface, both have strong sexual undertones. This combination of pose and gaze continues as we add multiple people into the composition, particularly women. We see this in Leindecker's Kuppenheimer advertisement, where he again utilizes the arrow man archetype for another company. A beautiful woman is present, an Aphrodite-like goddess sensually pulling her hair from her body, yet the men only have eyes for each other as they stand closer to the foreground and her to the back. Maybe she is not there to entice the men, but her, along with the putti or Cupid-like baby, to spread love amongst the men. Their flowers and aphrodisiac, so too for Cupid's arrow. The eye contact, white subtle, is a potent form of communication, and share between the illustrated men show a sexual chemistry and interest that just isn't apparent with the women they are with. This becomes more apparent in his all-male compositions. In the 1920s, Leindecker lands a campaign with Ivory Soap and again brings the arrow man with him. Ivory, once the brand of female freshness and squeaky clean babies, is now marketed towards men. The posing and gaze for these ads are much different from the group as just discussed. There is nothing subtle in the gaze of the men. In fact, it appears intense and tender as they gaze upon each other. Again, the audience is treated as if they are gazing into a private moment between two men. Even the conversation below, where two men talk intimately, they are talking intimately about their bathing practices, I led many viewers to read the image in words to depict something much more sexual. It should also be noticed that there are layers to this gaze and pose, not just amongst the subject, but Leindecker's gaze as he stares at his model. That is either his love or beach, or someone picked by the man for similar characteristics. While Leindecker's sexuality would have only been known to those closest to him, many speculate that his drawings were a way to communicate his sexuality, and may explain why this ad of two men seems intimate versus the other group photos. The next image from Leindecker's Ivory Soap ad is not tender at all, but more like a homoerotic locker room fantasy. The focal point of this image is the bare behind of the man in the center of the shower, which captures the gaze of almost every single man. Again, we should be reminded of Bathsheba and other similar paintings where something intimate is made sexual by the male gaze. That, along with Ivory's choice to use the slogan, "It floats," instead of the 99.44% pure, almost seems like a play on the words about male rape in prison, advice, don't drop the soap. After World War II, America was not interested in the flashy designs that Leindecker created. American conservatism was growing, and the once celebrated scantily clad men suddenly didn't sell. America was more interested in selling suburban life than sex. Illustrators like Norman Rockwell could take Leindecker's design and combine it with the small town American vibe that was more powerful during this time in America. Before American modesty erased his legacy in the mid-1900s, Joseph Christian Leindecker should be credited for the all-American boy image that even to this day we live by. smooth muscles, nicely groomed man with a hard jaw with voice